Welcome to the Bold Money Revolution podcast. This is your source for straight talking, no fluff, business and high performance conversations that add real depth and value to the way bold leaders live, work, and thrive. I'm your host, Tara Newman. I'm here to show you how to optimize your performance as a leader so that you can grow a business that is profit-rich, efficient, and allows you to generate real, tangible wealth for yourself and others. We are here to help you lead with your values, to perform without overwhelm and burnout, and to do your most important work in the world. Hey there. Welcome to the Bold Money Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Tara Newman, and I am here with repeat guest. He is a three-time, is that a hat trick? I don't know sports.
It is,
Charlie,
actually, yeah.
Charlie Gilkey. Hey, Charlie.
Hey, Tara. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be back and to be a semi-regular conspirator with you on some things.
Conspirator. I love it because that's what it felt like in the green room when we were chatting always. And so we're conspiring up a good podcast for you today. Charlie and I were talking about the fact that, well, I was calling him the granddaddy of online business. How does that title feel, Charlie?
I've been around. I'm a dinosaur when it comes to internet businesses, and I have to look at my mentors and guides and the giants before me and to be like, I'm a pup, right? I still feel like a pup in this space, but it's kind of hard in an online space when you've been doing something for, it's 2006. So however long that is, 2006 to 9, like you just see so much. I've seen so many different waves. If we want to talk about my body of work on productivity, I knew that I joined the third wave of productivity bloggers. We're now on like the 8th or 9th, right? Mm-hmm. I've seen so many different waves and shifts and trends, right? As I've gone along and still been doing what I've been doing at Productive Flourishing. Since then, there might be some changes in that going forward in the future. But yeah, I've been around a minute. Seen a lot, read a lot, had a lot of conversations. So yeah.
Yeah. And I really respect Charlie. The reason why he keeps coming back is because I just deeply respect his body of work. I respect his thought process, his thinking, and I just love having these conversations with him. So it's my way of coercing him on my schedule so we can have conversations. And, the one thing that I said to Charlie was, okay, you're the granddaddy here. You've been doing this since 2006. I've been creating content online since 2008, but not being paid for it per se. And I really started becoming paid for my work in 2014, being online. And the game it's my perception. I don't want to speak for everybody, which is why I want to throw this over to Charlie, but it's my perception that things have changed so dramatically.
Things have changed so dramatically. So if you really want to go back, like I remember reading Copy Blogger when they had 30 readers. We were still trying to get people to do RSS, right? At the time. So let's talk about then, because it might be useful to sort of prime people, right? On what it was like then. So at that time, MySpace was still in the conversation. Twitter hadn't actually been born yet.
I didn't have it. In 2008 was when I had my first Facebook account, and maybe shortly after that, Instagram, which is when I started my blog.
Yeah. iPads didn't exist, right? If you had a WordPress blog, you had to learn how to create hooks and learn how to actually program and build the website itself. Mm-hmm. Because you could do Blogger, which is still around, but you can do Blogger, you can do some. So there was just a lot of that. And what was controversial when I came on was the idea of selling ebooks and of selling information, charging people money to buy an ebook. That created a whole ruckus. Right. And also, how the hell did you do it? Right.
Yeah.
There's this tool that was awesome, but had a terrible name. And its name was eJunkie. Y'all, it was rough. It was rough, right? In a lot of ways, we are at the time, I alluded to this, the main goal was to write something that was super popular on Dig that would then crash your website because your website couldn't handle the traffic. Mm-hmm. Right. Reddit, so on and so forth. So going way back to that, we were still trying to get people, we were still explaining RSS, mm-hmm. which if you don't know what RSS is, it's a technology kind of like email that allows you to get the content that you subscribe to, but not go to your email inbox. Now, I have to explain that because who uses RSS these days? Turns out a lot of people, they just don't know it.
Yeah,
right?
It's really buried now into other things.
Yeah, but we used to, like, part of the thing, rather than asking people to sign up for your newsletter, because that was a whole thing, like, oh, there's this power of the email list. There's just so much different back then, right? But at the same time, we had, in a lot of ways, much more unified and coherent conversation. So you could write at a blog. So I would write at my blog, productiveflourishing.com. It was not called that at the time. It had some other stupid names until I got better and smarter, right? I would write a post, and then Tara might actually read said post on my website, mind you, and leave a comment on my website.
Yeah.
And then I would either leave Tara a quick comment, or I would write a whole ass other post. Right. And there was conversations. I can go back to those days and point that how many of those ideas came from, rather than like a podcast, like we're talking real time now, it came from those interactions, because it wasn't a fractured and split conversation. You did not have to be on Insta, on Pinterest, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on TikTok, on YouTube. Like, you didn't have to do all the content repurposing and like all that sort of stuff, because that's not what people were doing at the time.
Yeah. So when I had a blog way back in the day, same as you, the commenting, and that's really how we built relationships. Mm-hmm. And so I cut my teeth. I learned marketing because I wanted people to read my stuff. Mm-hmm. You write something and you want it to be read. Yeah. And so like, that's how I learned marketing. But so for me, marketing was about relationships. It was about building relationships with people who found and read my blog, and building relationships with the other bloggers that I read, and kind of, creating this community in the comment sections and in Facebook groups, when Facebook groups were good. And I still have a lot of those relationships today. I still have. And those were the best parts of social media. It was actually social and relational and kind and meaningful. And then things have changed.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you. That's
it became about traffic. It became about volume. It became about quantity. If I'm just making some distinctions.
I think it did. So partially what happened in those earlier days is there weren't the established business models that we know. Like membership sites, what we now call membership sites, like paid membership sites, were at best paid forums, right? Which were still very community focused. And we've seen Circle and Mighty Network sort of take that space and say, okay, there's still something to forums and community and things like that. And so a lot of times what we see in the space right now is you have to, when people pull me in for thought leadership strategy and brand strategy, that side of things, I'm like, you have to think about the different segments of your audience and what they look like, because there's still room for that tight, hat tip to Kevin Kelly on this one. So again, you said I was a grandfather. I look at like the Kevin Kellys and like, no,
sure,
those, they are the granddaddies. I'm just one of the pups. But, Kevin Kelly was the one that talked about 1,000 true fans.
Yep.
Right. It still works, actually.
It does. It really, really does.
It really, really does. But all of a sudden, having 1,000 true fans, like,
isn't good
enough.
That
was nothing. It's not good enough. Like, how many likes did you get? How much clout did you get from that? And so clout culture really started from my perspective, 2011, 2012. And we're still dealing with the sort of repercussions of clout culture. Because to your point, that's when it became less about those conversations and less about the transformation and more about, like, I wrote a post and, it got 1,000 likes on Facebook, which means it's great. I need to do more of that. And so Facebook was like, oh, we can encourage people to do more of this stuff that gets people on our platforms. And then all of a sudden, so many creators didn't realize that what they were doing was learning how to feed algorithms.
I want to pause for a second.
Yep.
Because I know that there are people who are listening to this and they have a checkered relationship with social media.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, feedback feels good.
Mm-hmm.
And so they feel like likes or comments or some kind of social engagement is winning.
Mm-hmm.
But I am going to be unpopular right now and say that likes, emojis, hearts, followers don't put food on your table. And I want to make sure, because we've gamified small business ownership on the wrong thing.
100%. I'm in a bad way when it comes to certain social media platforms. So I have to say this for other people, because it always seems like, Charlie, you're so hostile to social media. It's like, I'm actually not. But we have to understand what social media does and what it does for us. Right. And so when people are like, I'm on Instagram and I built up a following on Instagram, but I'm like, are they actually, from a business perspective, doing something that feeds you, feeds your team, and that feeds your community? Are they just liking and swiping and moving on? Because at a certain point, you will realize, to Tara's point, that the liking and swiping and moving on gets really hollow and unfulfilling, in the sense where it's like, I love that you love, like, that post went viral, but y'all, I'm struggling to pay my mortgage right now.
Yeah. So I'm realizing something as we're having this conversation. I'm getting slightly emotional about it as we took a trip down memory lane and the nostalgia of blogging, because for some reason, every year I come back to my team and I'm like, I just want to go back to the days when I used to blog and people would comment on my blog and it was relational. And you just said, I don't want to seem like I'm hostile to social media, which sometimes I feel like I can be hostile to social media, but I'm realizing in this moment, I'm grieving something.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks for being bold about that. Because what I'll say is, over the last 2 or 3 years, and some of us have not caught up with it, those conversations have shifted into other things. So Substack is a great example of a business and community that's like, hey, we miss that interaction that we used to have, right? We miss sending a post and someone liking it, like an actual reader liking it and leaving a comment and subscribing and sharing it with their friend. And, I make a point to this day that if I see one of my friends in the feed write something that I like, I will text or email them. Right? Hey, saw that. It was super dope.
Me too.
Thanks for publishing it. Because I'm like, one, I want that. And two, it gets really hollow. Like, you can feel like this anonymous content vending machine, and people just have this little slice of time and they'll put in their little nugget and then you'll spit out a soda for them. And then, like, that does not feel good.
Well, it's the worst part of capitalism in a way. It's extraction. It's extractive.
Yeah.
And it's taking without, there's such a lack of reciprocity. People barely share things anymore or leave a review or something if they've been consuming your content for free for periods of time and getting value out of it.
Yeah. Well, this is where I have to do my work sometimes, because occasionally we'll get a reader, like, we'll be behind on publishing something, or they couldn't find a free resource, and they'll feel really entitled to it. It's like, hey, like, I can't find that, and it's frustrating, and, like, where's this content? And I'm like, I could look at my records. I'm like, you haven't actually bought anything though. Like, no, this content is not free. I pay for this content.
Yes, it's free for you to consume.
It's free for you.
But it's not free for us. Like, this podcast is free for all of you to listen to, but it is not free for me. We say this all the time.
Right. So yeah, no, it's not free. Right. It's free for you. Right. And yes, the onus is on us as business owners to find a way to have loss leaders. And, we can talk all the sort of strategy things. But to your point about the reciprocity, like, we'll, at Productive Flourishing, we'll go months without we won't go months. That's not true. I will go months. The team hears from folks all the day in customer service and getting praise and things like that. But I won't hear from people as a writer and as the founder for a long time. Mm-hmm. Until we're like 2 days behind on publishing, like, free resources. And then all of a sudden people email me like, hey, when are the free planners for the month coming? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm really count on them. And that's usually where I come from. Where are the free planners? I count on them to do my work and I'm frustrated that I can't find them.
Mm-hmm.
Again, no customer record.
Mm-hmm.
So you're frustrated with me that I've created a resource that you use to do your best work that you have not paid for. And as a business owner and prioritizer, I've had to make different priority. Like I've had to do different things.
To bring in revenue and feed your family.
I take the gift, like we create them for people, right? But it's like there's that switch when when a gift goes to an expectation or a demand. And that's where, if you've been around for a while, you're going to have to start doing some work, because when it gets over to that demanding space, it's like, whoa. Hey, like, where is the reciprocity? Now, people can shop, right, and buy things. That's one way that there's a level of reciprocity. They can share it with your friends. Like, if you're doing that and sharing these resources and things like that, then you're helping the mission and you're helping the cause. Great. Like, that's a gift back. That's some reciprocity back, right? Or you can say thanks. Like, that was a great post, right? And people are like, I feel like I need to say something more than that. It's like, these days you don't, because these days, right, you get a great post, sort of actual someone that writes, 11 letters in a space. You're over the moon because they didn't click a button to move on,
So in the beginning, it was relational, and that's how we generated traffic, and we built these communities, and they were thriving.
Yeah.
Those were thriving communities, and they were decent size, and 100, even 100 true fans, forget 1,000, but even 100 true fans, right? Because I don't know, sometimes I don't even get 100 impressions or whatever they call it on social media on a post, right? Certainly not getting 100 likes. So how much of your business has been built on relationships, and how much effort over time have you put into traffic marketing? So,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Well, I do know what you're saying. It's hard for me to quantify, right? In the sense that, I'm going to be frank here. One of the benefits of being a dinosaur is that I have old content on the web that's got a lot of traffic that Google loves.
Yep.
Right. It's really hard to beat.
This is what I was hoping you would say.
Yeah, it's really hard to beat me on things around stuff that I've written about and kept relevant and fresh. Like, it's hard to beat me on time blocking. It's hard to beat me on, effectiveness as a measure of productivity. It's hard to beat me on post about Aristotle, apparently. Right. So there's just certain types of things like that we knew, like the difficulty, the disciplines, let me put it this way, pre the ascension of social media, we had to learn content marketing basics and practice them and get rewarded for them. Over time, we learned SEO, not the sort of black hat, so search engine optimization, not the sort of black hat creepy, but just learn to write. So they're like, what do people search? Because it was relevant. Like, you could actually win at that time. Right. And so you learn some of those. So for those things that I do that now, I've always been, had a teammate who used to say, "Hey, Charlie, why are you so hostile to SEO?" And I would say, I'm hostile to posts written purely for SEO.
For SEO, yes.
That's what I'm hostile to. If I'm writing about something and there are natural ways people search for that, great, let's optimize for that. If I'm doing the linguistic world building that I do, I'm not going to stop doing that just because it won't rank on Google. Like, that's the thing that you have to understand when you do this long enough. If you are only answering the basic questions over and over again, prior to 2022, I would say, guess what? You're competing with Wikipedia and all the established brands because they've already covered those. In 2023, I'm going to say, guess what? You're competing with AI.
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to ask, because this is something we started talking about right before we hit record. So I just want to kind of just summarize a little bit. Charlie's talking about an SEO strategy that he's had going for him for decades, over a decade, because of how long he's been around. And that he doesn't particularly like to perform for an algorithm for SEO because SEO is algorithmic, right? And that's really what people don't understand about when they are trying to drive traffic and use social media. that they don't realize the level of performance that they're going to have to do in order to be seen on that app or in social media. And because Charlie's built great habits and process around the posts that he already knows are doing well, so he doubles down on what's working. He'll go back and he'll refresh them, and they stay current with the SEO. And that's really a long tail strategy.
Very long.
Very long. And so those of us who are actually earning a living using the internet, making money, quote unquote, online, are using long tail conversion strategiys.
Yeah.
The podcast is a long tail conversion strategy.
Very long.
Nothing is really short tail conversion. I think that there's statistics like 50 to 75% of your leads aren't going to be a good fit for your offer.
Yep.
But out of the ones who are, 15% will buy now, short tail conversion. 85% will buy later, long tail conversion. And what traditional internet marketing or online business does is it only focuses on the 15% in the short tail conversion, which is why people tend to dump their leads, and they're dumping 85% of the people who are going to buy later.
Yeah.
And they've relied on ads to continually fill and find that 15%. But now we're at a point where I'm not sure if that's as viable. And again, I think the people that are having tremendous success with that are like Charlie, that they've been using that strategy for a very long time. And it's worked for them over time, like Charlie's has. And now what Charlie is saying is even the SEO game is changing.
Yep. We as online business owners, content creators, need to be prepared for the reality that Google, Bing are going to, like, in the future, in the not too far future, when someone types a question into the search bar, AI is going to answer that question and not send people back to another website.
Right. So I am very AI not literate at the moment. We're testing it on the team to save some time. I've opened up Chat GPT and saved it, so played with it. And here's what I noticed from the very first moment. I type in a question and I give it like a prompt, like write me a 500-word summary on this topic, whatever. Gives it back to me. And the first thing I notice, there's no attribution.
Zero.
I don't know who's written this. I don't know if it's true.
Yeah. So as a pro tip on this one for everyone listening, rather than do what you just did, a better way to prompt that. So this is for a more integrous way for Charlie to use that is to say, cite and summarize resources on this topic.
Nice.
Because it will force the engines to tell you where they got that work from. And then you can do what I think good attribution, respect, and recognition processes are, is when you write whatever post you're going to create from that, you can look back to the original creators and honor where that work came from. Because if you were a content creator, that's what you would want, right? You wouldn't want your content being one of 8 sources that get. So what AI does at this point, and it's getting better, but what it does is it takes smatterings from different websites, recombines them into something that looks like it makes sense, and then gives you the answer. So it's kind of skirting around public domain rules, right? And skirting around so much of that stuff to give those answers, which is why many people are concerned about it. So again, when I use it, it's always cite and source, right? Answer this question, cite, giving me citations of where this came from. But to Tara's point, it's going to scrape, like if Tara and I both wrote a post about business models, whatever, right? And we typed in something that's like, give me some ideas on how to generate business models. What the tools are going to do is scrape Tara's site scrape my site, scrape a bunch of other sites, anonymize it, and put it back together, and then give someone an answer. You won't, before too long, have to go to ChatGPT or Bard or any of the other ones to do that. That's just what that little search bar is going to be. Right? That's what they want. Now, at some point, we can anticipate massive lawsuits coming about this. But if you've been around as long as I have, you know that internet law and virtual law is so foreign, and like national legislators don't know what to do with that. Look at, CAN spam in Canada. Look at GDPR. Look at some of those things where physical localities have tried to legislate about virtual stuff and how well or not that's gone, right? Even in the United States, we're still trying to figure out how to account for sales tax. Is it from the customers region, or is it from the state's region? Like, where does that get collected? How does that happen? What's the amount that you have to collect? Does that mean you have a nexus? Like, if I sell to a customer in New York, does that mean that Productive Flourishing has a nexus in New York? So New York gets some of my money? Or does Oregon? Like, we're still figuring all of that out.
Yeah.
So if they can't figure out how to split money, they're probably not going to care much about how to split words and ideas and concepts.
So the way I started my business, how did you start? How did you start your business? Like, was it you had a blog and then you realized that you had an audience and then you were like, oh, I'm going to sell them something because I can't keep doing this for free?
So I started, and not so much that. So I started and I was like, oh, I'm talking about some of these tools a lot. There's this thing called affiliate marketing. So I could start doing some of that. And then I kept writing. And I shout out to Naomi Dumford, because she was reading some of the work. So from IttyBiz, I think she may have changed the name of that, but shout out Naomi. We were working together, and I was reading her stuff. I hired her as a marketing coach because I needed marketing help earlier on, right? And then we started doing some collaborations on projects, launched a project, and I had been doing sort of speakeasy coaching, like, wasn't really what I was planning on doing at the time. I was still an Army commander and finishing my PhD. Like, it was not on the career trajectory. But it came to a point, she was like, look, I'm going to write about what happened, and I'm going to say that you were the coach. And so if you don't get your coaching page up, we're both going to look stupid. So I wrote a coaching page and started charging, right? And then a few years later, quit my job, and next day later replaced all of the revenue that I had from my job with coaching.
Okay. So this is similar to how I started in 2014, and I'm taking everybody somewhere. I have a plan, Charlie. So similar, I had been blogging for a few years, and I was like, gee, I'm giving all this value away, and it's starting to feel exhausting, publishing 3 to 5 blog posts a week. And I'm burned out from my job. And my doctor told me I need to really consider a leave of absence. And how am I going to do that? I make a lot of money and blah, 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 blah. So to a very small list, less than 100 people, who a lot of them were probably family, I sent out a very not professionally copywritten email and was just like, and also not clear at all around what I'm doing, because I didn't know. And I was just like, hey, I'm coaching on these topics. And within 3 months, I had made more money than I had made in my bonus check.
Same.
And I was kind of like, well, if this was possible in such a short period of time, can you imagine what else is possible? And so I worked full time while getting my business up and running for the first year, while being class mom. I don't recommend that to anybody. But these were people who I had been building a relationship with. They've been very warm. I'd been giving them value for a long time. This was a long tail conversion.
Yeah.
Let's be clear about that. But if we were to do this again, what would that look like? How would we get to even 100 true fans with the way things have changed?
So first, I don't know that I'm thinking of how many shows I'm going to get canceled from when I say the following. Those basic fundamentals have not changed. Right?
The basic fundamentals of what, though?
Relationship building. Creating solutions over a period of time for people and building know, like, and trust with them. 3. Well, so let me talk about relationships.
Because you're under the assumption that people know and are operating from the fundamentals, and I'm telling you they're not.
Okay.
I'm telling you that they go, oh my gosh, there's an app. And if I post on the app, there's like 8 billion people in the world who could possibly see my thing. And so the first place they're going to start their business or grow their business is a very noisy, very crowded space.
Yep. So thanks for priming me on what it's like to start again. Right. And so when I was thinking about the shows that I was going to get canceled on and the things that I was going to get canceled on, it's because a lot of, especially the people in the marketing space, are giving tactics that work for their brand of marketing that don't often work for a lot of other people. Right.
Let's get canceled.
If you are great at thinking through social media advertising and writing copy and figuring out the algorithm and looking at spreadsheets and that sort of thing, like wets your whistle, you have a leg up in the marketing space. That is 100% true, because you are going to be able, by brute force, win. The question then becomes, where do you get your money from? Like, there's all those sort of things that you have to consider, right? But
they could win the traffic game, but that doesn't mean they're going to win the revenue game.
Well, typically you have to. So let's talk about the physics of business here, right? Because you can't get around them too long. So a few things you need. If you're pre-customer, right, you need to be able to identify an audience that wants the type of solution that you sell, right? An audience of people that wants to buy the type of thing that you sell. The second thing you need to really understand is who they're already buying that solution from. You think your thing is new and hot? It's not. I'm sorry, it's not. Right? There is someone else, and many someone else's who you just don't know, doing that same thing. And you know what? That's not a problem. If you're an Enneagram 4, I know you're mad at me because it's all about being special, but for everybody else, right? It's actually a good thing that there are people buying that type of solution in the market. I get super scared as a business strategist, and it's like, well, there's not really people buying this and there's no competitors. I'm like, if there's no competitors, that means the marketplace doesn't understand that this is a solution worth paying for. You have an invention, not an innovation. An invention, not an innovation. Like, we got to figure out how to make it an innovation, which means it has marketplace value. Okay. You need a way to get to said customers, to talk to them, to build the know, like, and trust, to speak in a language that they understand, that solves the problems that they have. You need a way to convert that attention. It's an old school marketing and sort of business framework, but the ADA framework. And Tara, if I'm going off, let me know. You'll pull me back on. So awareness, interest, desire, action. Awareness, interest, desire, action. So sure, to Tara's point, you go on social media, you start a thing, you get awareness and you get interest. But did you actually create desire to buy something? And this is where you have to be careful about sort of rebel marketing or like sort of anti-marketing, because there's a lot of anti-marketing brands like, this thing sucks. And everybody's like, yeah, it sucks. Whatever the thing is. And then after the, yeah, it sucks, there's no, I'll buy a thing from you. Right? It's like, yeah, that sucks. I want more content about how that sucks. Well, guess what? That content ain't free, folks. Someone's got to buy a solution on the backside of that, which means if you're going to be all audacious and come out with an anti-brand, at some point, you're going to have to grow up and provide a positive solution that people will buy. Sorry about it. That's business, right? Now, if you want to like lead a non-commercial movement where you don't need to get money and it's a thing that you do in a hobby, and you're okay with just getting like that attention and stoking the flame and things like that, fine. That's not a problem, right? Do that. But don't be mad when it's not making you any money, because that's what you signed up for, right? Sign up for a hobby, you get hobby returns. That's what's up when it comes to that. So will they buy a solution from you is something you got to know. So that when we start talking about desire and action, that's when you start thinking about some of the things you're talking about. Like, how do you actually create an invitation for them to buy that from you, right? For many people, especially women, I happen to know a lot of women listen to this podcast, you have to learn one of those things that our society has not taught you, which is how to invite people to do something that you're not sure that they want to do, right? We socialize women to be the person asked and for them to decide whether they want to do it or not. When you become a salesperson, you have to get used to asking someone you don't know really if they want to do and buy something from you, yes or no. And so many women learn the hard way that so much of the first year or two of business is actually massive rejection therapy, right? You have to get used to getting no's. I was talking to a client who was so scared to get started because she was afraid of getting no's. And so I gave her the old writing advice, which is like on the sales thing, like, look, I'm going to tell you the hard thing, but we have to get those first 30 no's, right? Hers was a job search. And so you got to think about how daunting it is to receive 30 rejection letters, like we're not interested letters, but it's like that was her stuck, was not the actual outcome, but just that rejection in the meantime.
Yep.
So, and you're like, Charlie, the rejection is the actual outcome. Actually, that's another conversation.
The rejection's the win.
Well, until you get used to it and you understand it's not about you. You weren't a fit. Your whole job in the first early stages of the business is to figure out how to find a fit with someone. It's dating, right? You go on a bunch of dates and they're not a fit. Cool, right? Until you find the people who are a fit and then you get better at it, right? So action, and that's where you come to Tara's point of people who join your list or who buy from you and so on and so forth. So again, when I teach strategic customer development in places that I do that, what I remind people is most of the value of their business is in their back-end pipeline. And by back-end pipeline, I mean, these are people who bought from you and had a neutral or good experience from you that you have not talked to again. Right. So instead of going out there and finding new people and first-time customers, which by the way, first-time customers are your most expensive customer. How about you go back to the people that already said yes and had a neutral or positive experience and ask them what they want next?
We have an entire curriculum on this.
Great. So I'm preaching to the converted or at least the curious on this one.
No, this is why. So folks, this is why he comes on. Because I just tee him up, fire him up, get him going, and then he just confirms everything that I say and believe. Great. And then you get to hear it from him and me.
Yeah. For at no cost. I was about to say for free. No. And so again, to your point, I know that seems like I've gone on a diversion from like they join social media and they do a thing. It's like, no, you have to actually unpack what it's going to take to make a business out of this.
Correct.
Right.
I think that's where they get stuck is they're just seeing the template. They're seeing maybe somebody's, in your case, like 15, 16, 17 years ahead. But Charlie's doing it. Well, Charlie started doing it in 2006. Well, Tara's doing it. Well, Tara started doing it in 2014. And you know what? Charlie and Tara are here telling you that they started with relationship marketing. You start with We actually, in our business, I didn't answer the previous question. So I answered about 4 questions you didn't ask. We still do relationship marketing. Like we have a whole CRM where we're like, yes, there are 600 people that clicked on this link. Yes. Let's actually reach out to them one-on-one to see what's up, right? And talk to them and see what they need. And so, what happened? So you mentioned something. It's like digital marketing. You said digital marketing does this or online marketing. Started the ad-based approach in 2012, 2013. Now, for smaller creators, obviously big businesses have been doing ad-based approach for a long time. But there was this brief period of time where Facebook was a friggin' gold mine. It really was. Like you can get, a subscriber, not a click, a subscriber for like 8 cents. You know how easy it is to build a business on an 8-cent subscriber? Do the math, right? How many of them do you need to convert to a customer for a $30 product for that to be viable? That works. Those days ended for a lot of folks in 2018 or so. Oh, yeah. Right. Oh, I remember. Do you remember they used to put like $100,000 worth of ad spend on a credit card. And then after the launch, they would just pay off the credit card. Can you imagine doing that today? No. I mean, I couldn't imagine doing it then, but like, I can't imagine doing that today.
Yeah. I mean, not to get overly detailed, but that's some of the ways that we built up. Part of it is because we came up during that period now. And I realized in retrospect in 2023, it's like, we didn't play that game nearly as well as we could have. Right. Like I way underspent in 2015 and 16. Right. Mm-hmm. And here's either people. So listener, if you're no longer with us and you got other things to do, please go do those. But for those of you who are still standing around for the nerdery, like what that model created, that ad-based channel model created was, to your point, if they didn't convert in the first 3 to 7 days, cull them from the list. Mm-hmm. You need to do that because you have to feed the algorithms to say who creates a good customer. And if you have too many people that are not good customers, the algorithm gets confused and sends you people who are non-buyers, but you're paying for those non-buyers. So you got to get them off the list. Get them off the list because your whole strategy, your whole business model depended upon you being able to pay off that ad bill in 45 days. And if you weren't able to pay off that ad bill that you racked up, then you ended up carrying that and ended up in the hole. So it's either the ad hole, which I've talked about, or the launch hole. The launch hole is when you do the big launch and you spend a bunch of money on it and then it doesn't work. And then you've got that debt hanging on, but that was the one ship you had. So to make up for that, you got to do the launch again and hope that you do better. Well, if you do better, you might pay for the second launch. If you're really lucky, you might pay for the first launch. But if you don't, then you're in the hole doubly. And probably haven't learned some of the fundamentals about how to assess whether things are working or not. And just looking at revenue and expenses and things like that and trying to figure out how to, like, maybe there's some magic button I can press this next time and have a different result. So again, I sound like I don't want to be like I'm shitting on these growth strategies. I'm saying these growth strategies are harder to do these days.
Yes.
And most people selling the ease and the dream of the growth strategies are not selling the actual real work of those growth strategies, because at the end of the day, people don't want to buy work because it sounds like work.
Well, and thank you, because that is where we have a problem. Because we have people who are seeing this, they're buying in, saying, hey, I want to be a business owner. It looks easy. It doesn't look like work. And then, maybe 18 months, 2 years in, they feel like they've been smacked upside the head with a shovel. Their mental health is in the toilet, and reality of the unending learning curve is setting in. Mm-hmm. And it gets real desperate real quickly. I'm going to take a stab at endnoting us, and then I'm going to let you do it because that's your skill set. So I've got some takeaways. My takeaways is that I'm grieving what was and the relational components of what social media used to actually be versus what it is now. I noticed that there was a huge missed opportunity for me back then too, to like really leverage ads and put that, like, lay those foundations. And I probably missed out on perhaps bucket loads of money. However, I will tell you that I am happier than I've ever been. My mental health is intact. I have a wonderful, sustainable, minimalist business that feels easy on my energy and allows me the time that I need to be with my family and to take care of my health. Now, that's not going to be for everyone. That is Tara's experience. 20% of the people who are probably listening to this want to go out and do those social media things that Charlie and I were talking about. But this episode is for the 80% of you that don't, right? Yeah. And so for the 80% of you that don't, I really want to give you permission to build a business that's agnostic of technology.
Yep. Yeah.
Those were my end notes.
I appreciate that. I didn't know how long we were going to talk. Whenever I do here's how things were, I always want to end with here's how things are and how they're great. Actually, I said those fundamentals still work. They do. They do. So when a lot of people come to me, Tara, and they're like, well, I want to build a platform and I want to do all these types of things, I don't have room for a lot of startup entrepreneur clients at this point. But what I'll always tell them through like the academy is like, look, I know that's what you want, but if you work with me, we are going to start by focusing on relationship marketing and sales. And if you are not interested in relationship marketing and sales, you need to find another coach. And why I focus on that is because what good does it do for us to build up a platform and to build a high-end program that, by the way, high-end programs, you've always had to sell, right? You've always had to get on a call and talk to people and do that sort of work. So what good does it do for us to build that up? And then you still not have those fundamentals and invest all of that money and time versus looking at the 15 people who might actually want to work with you now if you learned how to do this relationship marketing and really conscious, heart-based selling. Mm-hmm. If you do that and you learn that from the beginning, you can do a lot of other things. And you might realize you don't have to build this massive team and this massive platform and this massive sort of thing. You can keep it simple, right? Earn between 75 and 300K. And it's just you, maybe an assistant or teammate or two. And, at a certain point on the entrepreneurial journey, you started thinking it's going to be this big thing and it's your calling, it's your passion, it's all those sort of words. But at a certain point, you're like, you know what? This is a job. Mm. It's a job. I love my job. I love what my job creates for me and the world and my team. But fundamentally, it's a job. How do you get great at that job? And how do you let it go? And if you are the type, to Tara's point, that wants to build a massively scalable and the next $1 billion business and those types of things, you're going to be on a different road. And I have yet to see someone that was able to do that without giving up something important to them. So you're going to have to figure out what you're going to give up. Sorry, you are. Right? If you take the slower path over the course of 8 to 12 years, you might not have to. But if you want to hyperscale and get there in 3 years,
you're trading off your soul and your sanity. Go get a good therapist. So am I canceled now?
your listeners will let us know. So here's what I'm saying. Business is still good. Even in this tech winter, even in AI, even in all these sort of things, the opportunity you have in front of us, that people are going to be more overwhelmed and know less of what to do, right? What are you going to do to step into that space and to serve them, and through good business practices, serve yourself? Because I don't think the best days are over. I think we're just in different days.
I'm cheering and clapping if you can't hear. You get all the snaps there, my friend, all the snaps. Is your new book officially out?
The new book, Team Habits, is not officially out. It's coming out August the 27th.
So is it pre-order?
You can pre-order it though. So yes.
So where can people find you? What are your books? You're epic. Let's give it to them.
Alrighty. So it's plug time. I was not prepared for this. No, I'm joking. So if you want to follow the conversation, you can join me at productiveflourishing.com. I'm currently not on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. So if you do the social thing, hit me up on LinkedIn. My new book coming out, Team Habits, is really how to build a high belonging, high performance team, not really by changing people, but really changing the ways you work with each other. Most of our problems at work, not people problems, they're work problems or process problems. Mm-hmm. So it helps you get into that. That comes out August 27th, 2023. And you can also take the Team Habits audit quiz in case you are wondering which team habits to start with your team. And you can find that all currently at productiveflourishing.com, but the future's uncertain when it comes to where you might find me in the future.
That's awesome, Charlie. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
If you found this podcast valuable, help us develop more bold leaders in the world by sharing this episode with your friends, colleagues, and other bold leaders. Also, if you haven't done so already, please leave a review. I consider reviews like podcast currency, and it's the one thing you can do to help us out here at the Bold Leadership Revolution HQ. We would be so grateful for it. Special thanks goes to Stacey Harris from Uncommonly More, who is the producer and editor of this podcast. Go check them out for all your digital marketing and content creation needs. Be sure to tune into the next episode to help you embrace your ambition and leave the grind behind.